Every great mystery trains you to ask the wrong question first. For 4 seasons, From has convinced us that escaping the town is the goal. We searched the forest. We followed the faraway trees. We watched Tabitha leave, only to be pulled back again. We treated every new clue like another piece of a map. But after rewatching every episode, I don't think the map was ever meant to matter. Because something strange happens when you stop asking, how did they get out? And start asking, why won't the town let this story end? Suddenly the monsters make more sense. The children make more sense. Victor makes more sense. Even the man in yellow starts looking less like the final villain and more like someone protecting a system that's been repeating for generations. And that's when one terrifying realization hit me. I don't think From is building toward a final battle. I think it's building toward a final choice. A choice that every generation before this one has already made and failed. After rewatching everything from the pilot to the season 4 finale, I think the show has quietly revealed exactly how it ends. Not through one big clue hidden in a single episode, but through dozens of tiny details that all point toward the same conclusion. And once you see that pattern, it's almost impossible to unsee it. The biggest surprise from my rewatch wasn't discovering a new clue. It was realizing that the show has been repeating the same lesson since the very first episode, and almost nobody notices because we're too busy looking at the monsters. Think back to the Matthews family's arrival. They don't lose because they make a mistake. They lose because the town gives them the illusion that escape is possible. Every decision after that is driven by hope that one more road, one more shortcut, one more experiment will finally reveal the exit. Then the exact opposite happens. The more they search for a physical escape, the deeper they become trapped inside the mystery. That pattern never changes. Jim builds a radio tower. No answer. Tabitha digs beneath the house. She discovers something impossible instead of a way home. People map the forest. The forest changes. The faraway trees appear to help, until they send people somewhere they never expected. Even leaving the town doesn't solve anything. Tabitha reaches the outside world, only for the town to bring her right back. Notice what every failed attempt has in common. Each one assumes the prison is physical. Each one is answered with something that proves it isn't. That completely changes how we should look at every mystery in the series. Maybe the forest isn't hiding the exit. Maybe the forest is distracting everyone from the real prison. Once I started thinking that way, another pattern became impossible to ignore. Every supernatural rule in From feels random at first. But after 4 seasons, none of them are actually random. The monsters only come at night. Talismans work under specific conditions. The boy in white appears to certain people. The children only reach certain characters. The visions don't happen to everyone. The faraway trees never move people completely at random. Everything impossible still follows rules. And that's incredibly important. Because random magic doesn't need consistency. A system does. Imagine walking into a factory without knowing what it produces. Machines are moving. Lights are flashing. Workers are performing the same actions every day. At first it looks chaotic. But eventually you realize every machine exists for one purpose. That's exactly how the town behaves. The monsters aren't simply killing people. The visions aren't simply terrifying people. The dreams aren't just nightmares. Every part of the town pushes its victims toward specific emotional states. Fear, isolation, desperation, hopelessness. Whenever the survivors begin trusting each other, something tears them apart. Whenever someone gets close to understanding the truth, another crisis pulls everyone's attention away. Whenever hope begins growing, tragedy follows almost immediately. That isn't coincidence. That's maintenance. Which brings us to something I completely overlooked the first time I watched the show. The monsters themselves. Everyone talks about how creepy they look. Almost nobody asks why they behave the way they do. Real predators don't smile. Real predators don't casually walk toward prey. Real predators don't stand outside windows having conversations. The creatures in From don't act like animals. They act like people performing a job. That tiny difference changes everything. Because jobs have rules. Jobs have routines. Jobs have purposes. Even when they could run, they choose to walk. Even when they could attack immediately, they often wait. They speak politely. They imitate normal human behavior. It's almost like they remember being human without fully understanding what being human actually felt like. And Season 4 quietly gives us the reason. The town wasn't invaded by monsters. It created them. The original bargain transformed ordinary people into something that could never truly die. That's horrifying on its own. But here's the detail that matters even more. If the original sacrifice already happened, why does the town keep bringing in new people? The deal should already be complete. Unless it isn't. Unless immortality isn't something that was purchased once. Unless it's something that has to be renewed. That single possibility explains something the show has never fully answered. Why buses keep arriving. Why new families always appear. Why the cycle never ends. The town doesn't simply need victims. It needs participants. People who can eventually be pushed toward making exactly the same impossible decision the founders made long ago. And once I realized that, the children's most famous word stopped sounding mysterious and started sounding like the most important warning in the entire series. That word is remember. When the series finally revealed the meaning behind the children's chant, most people treated it like another mystery solved. I think it was much bigger than that. I think it quietly revealed the entire purpose of the town. Because think about who the children say it to. Not everyone. Not every newcomer. Not even every person who sees them. Again and again, they focus on people like Tabitha and Jade. The people whose memories begin slipping beyond ordinary dreams into something older. Something that feels less like imagination and more like recognition. That's an important difference. The children never say, find us. They never say, save us. They never even explain what happened to them. They repeat one instruction. Remember. At first that sounds frustrating, because remember what? But after rewatching the series, I don't think they're asking the characters to remember information. I think they're asking them to remember themselves. Look at how memory works inside from. Characters don't discover the truth through research. They don't solve it by reading books. They don't unlock it by building machines. Instead, memories appear like flashes. A melody, a symbol, a conversation that feels strangely familiar. A place that feels like it has already been visited. Almost every major breakthrough happens because someone remembers something they were never supposed to know. That isn't how normal mysteries work. It's how forgotten lives return. The biggest example is Tabitha and Jade. Season 4 doesn't simply suggest they're connected to the past. It practically screams it. Neither character gains entirely new knowledge. Instead, they recover pieces of lives that already belong to them. That's why their discoveries feel emotional before they feel logical. They're not solving somebody else's story. They're recovering their own. And that's where Victor becomes one of the most important people in the entire show. For years, fans have treated Victor as the strange survivor. The man who somehow stayed alive longer than anyone else. But after watching everything again, I think survival isn't what makes Victor special. Memory does. Victor is the only person who has lived through an earlier cycle without completely losing who he is. Everyone else forgets. Victor doesn't. His memories are damaged. They're fragmented. Sometimes they're confusing. But they're still there. That's exactly why the boy in white trusts him. It's also why Victor constantly draws pictures. People often think the drawings are simply a coping mechanism. I don't. Pictures don't just preserve events. They preserve memories that words can't explain. Victor doesn't draw because he enjoys it. He draws because he knows memories disappear. Without realizing it, he's been creating the only history book the town can erase. That's why his drawings become valuable every single season. Whenever someone gets close to understanding the past, Victor already has a picture of it. Whenever another mystery appears, one of his forgotten drawings suddenly becomes relevant again. He's been documenting an entire cycle that nobody else remembers. Then there's Miranda. The relationship between Miranda, Victor, and Tabitha becomes even more heartbreaking once you stop viewing reincarnation as just another supernatural twist. Imagine spending decades beside someone whose soul you once loved, while neither of you can explain why that connection feels so natural. Tabitha protects Victor almost instinctively. She comforts him when others lose patience. She believes him when almost nobody else does. On a first watch, those moments feel like kindness. On a second watch, they feel like memory leaking through the cracks. Not conscious memory, emotional memory. The kind that survives even when names disappear. The same thing happens with Jade. Why is he obsessed with solving impossible puzzles? Why does every symbol seem strangely familiar? Why does the melody keep pulling him toward the same truth? Because every cycle appears to give him the same responsibility. Not because the town randomly chooses him. Because his soul has always been the one trying to understand the system. That idea changes how we should think about reincarnation in From. This isn't reincarnation as a reward or punishment. It's repetition. The town keeps bringing back the same people because unfinished choices keep returning with them. Every generation gets another chance to finish what the last one couldn't. That's why the roles stay almost identical. There's always someone who questions everything. Someone who protects everyone. Someone who remembers pieces of the past. Someone who loses hope. Someone who breaks under pressure. Someone willing to sacrifice others. The faces change. The names change. But the pattern refuses to change. It's almost like the town isn't collecting people at all. It's rebuilding the same story over and over again until it finally reaches a different ending. And that brings us to the one character who completely changed my opinion after this rewatch. Not Boyd. Not Jade. Not Tabitha. The man in yellow. Because I don't think he's trying to win. I think he's trying to make sure the cycle never changes. And once you look at his actions through that lens, almost everything he does starts making terrifying sense. The more I think about the man in yellow, the less I believe he's the true creator of the town. That sounds strange because Season 4 pushes us toward exactly that conclusion. He's powerful. He knows more than everyone else. He appears at the most important moments. Every time the survivors get close to the truth, he's already waiting for them. The obvious answer is that he's the mastermind. But From has always loved making the obvious answer the wrong one. Think about when he actually acts. He doesn't interfere every single time the survivors make progress. Boyd kills Smiley, and the town continues. Tabitha briefly escapes, and the system still survives. Jade uncovers more symbols, yet nothing immediately changes. For someone supposedly controlling everything, he spends a surprising amount of time simply watching. Then suddenly, when the rules begin breaking apart in Season 4, he becomes much more active. That timing matters. It doesn't feel like someone protecting a secret. It feels like someone repairing damage. Look at everything that begins falling apart during the finale. The familiar rules stop feeling reliable. The balance between day and night begins changing. The survivors start comparing information instead of keeping secrets. People who used to carry only one piece of the puzzle are finally putting those pieces together. For the first time in the series, the town starts losing control of its greatest weapon. Not the monsters. Not fear. Confusion. For years the town has survived because nobody understands the whole picture. Victor knows the past but struggles to explain it. Jade understands symbols, but not memories. Tabitha connects with the children, but doesn't understand why. Boyd refuses to surrender, but he doesn't know what he's truly fighting. Each person carries one fragment. No one carries the complete truth. That separation has protected the system for decades. Now, imagine what happens when those fragments finally meet. The machine doesn't face one dangerous person anymore. It faces all of them together. That's why the finale feels different from every season before it. The town isn't reacting to one discovery. It's reacting to understanding itself. And that's where my biggest theory begins. I don't think From ends because someone finally defeats the monsters. I don't think it ends because someone kills the man in yellow. And I definitely don't think it ends because somebody discovers a hidden road through the forest. None of those endings actually solve the problem. They only solve the symptoms. Instead, I think the final season is leading toward the exact same decision that created the town in the first place. Long ago, ordinary people were asked to make an impossible choice. Sacrifice innocent children, or face death themselves. They chose survival. That decision didn't simply create monsters. It created an entire system built around repeating the same test forever. Every new group that arrives slowly experiences the same pressure. Food becomes scarce. People lose hope. Fear grows. Trust disappears. Eventually, someone starts asking the same dangerous question. What if sacrificing a few people saves everyone else? That's the moment the town has been waiting for. Not another death. Another decision. Every cycle renews because somebody eventually agrees that one innocent life is an acceptable price for everyone else's survival. Fear keeps producing the same answer. But this generation feels different. Not because they're smarter. Not because they're stronger. Because they have something no previous cycle ever fully had. They're remembering together. Victor remembers the past. Tabitha remembers another life. Jade remembers forgotten knowledge. Boyd refuses to accept impossible choices. Instead of acting alone, they're finally beginning to complete each other's understanding. That combination may be something the town has never successfully contained before. Which brings me to Boyd. I've seen countless theories predicting Boyd will sacrifice himself to save everyone. Honestly, I think that's exactly what the town wants us to expect. Boyd's greatest strength has never been winning fights. It's refusing false choices. Again and again, the town presents him with impossible decisions. Save one person or another. Risk the group or risk yourself. Accept terrible odds or surrender. And almost every time, Boyd searches for another way. Even when everyone tells him there isn't one. That stubborn refusal may be the one thing every previous generation lacked. So here's my prediction. The ending of From won't be about escaping the town. It will be about breaking the pattern. Someone, probably Boyd, will stand in the exact position the founders once stood. The same fear. The same impossible offer. The same promise that sacrificing the innocent will finally save everyone else. But this time, someone says no. Not because it's safe. Not because they're certain it'll work. But because they refuse to build another future on the same bargain that created the nightmare in the first place. And if that happens, the prison won't collapse because its guardian dies. It will collapse because the choice that kept renewing it is finally rejected. The road won't open because somebody found a hidden exit. It will open because, for the first time in generations, nobody agreed to pay the price the town demanded. That's why, after watching every episode again, I don't think From has ever been telling a story about escaping a cursed place. I think it's been telling a story about escaping a way of thinking. The monsters, the forest, the faraway trees, the symbols, even the man in yellow. They were never the ending. They were all part of one question the town has been asking since the very beginning. What are you willing to sacrifice to survive? And my prediction is that the series doesn't end when someone finally finds a way out. It ends when someone finally refuses to become the next person who keeps the cycle alive. If that's true, then the real mystery of From was never where the road leads. It was whether humanity could finally choose a different destination.